All right. Hello, guys. This research survey is on secure multi-party computation. And I'm Albert, a junior studying CS.
And I'm Panpu, I'm also a junior studying CS. So let's get ahead to the problem itself. So let's talk about a motivating problem to make this more concrete. Suppose you have five people in the same room and they want to find out what the average salary is. But of course, salary information is pretty confidential, and so they don't just want to tell each other the salary straight up to get this information. So how could we devise a protocol to find the average salary? So a naive approach might be to just find a third party. So in this case, suppose we don't trust Google, why not just tell Google our salaries and have Google tell us our average salaries? Well, this is not really a good solution because on the internet especially, you don't really trust so many people. And are you sure you have to hand over more data to Google? So let's try to see if we can remove this trusted third party requirement. Right, so for a second attempt at solving this problem, we can try the following. So suppose if I'm A, I could first generate a large random X, and then I'll pass on X plus my salary to B. And for all that matters, B is just going to see a random number being passed to it. And so from here, B is able to add his or her own salary and pass it on to C, so on and so forth. So when it eventually comes back to A, as this diagram shows, A can simply subtract the random number they generated and then divide this by 5 to get the average salary. So are we done here? No. So in a non-trusted model, we can have adversarial participants. And in this case, suppose that A and C are buddies, and they're trying to figure out like how much B is making. C will simply tell A the input that C received. And with this information, both of them can compute the salaries of B. So we need to find a better way for this, as Albert would explain.
Yeah, to do this, we should define our problem more formally. So suppose we have n parties, each with, well, one piece of the input, and we want to compute any function f on such inputs without revealing anything to any party other than just the output of f. However, just with this simple question, we still have some other questions that we need to resolve. For example, what kind of adversary models we might expect. Well, there are some formulations of this. For example, we might expect some passive adversaries who might also be curious, meaning that they would follow the protocols but may try to learn something about others' data during or after the protocol. And there might also be some malicious adversaries. Well, they're not going to follow any protocols at all, and some might assume them to be all powerful, and some others might assume they're polynomial time Turing machines. And some others might assume adversaries to be mobile, meaning that the adversaries might change in each round of MPC protocol. And finally, we may consider some coercing adversaries who may force users to use inputs that they want. Yeah. And here we'll provide some brief history on the whole research topic. The research topic of MPC basically started with Andrew Yao when he first formulated a two-party computation in 1982 with the famous millionaire's problem. And then 5 years later, Godridge, Micali, McPherson generalized their construction to multi-party, where n is greater than 2. This is like one of the seminal papers. And then in 1990s, researchers started looking at different models and assumptions on top of the original MPC protocols. For example, some looked at the asynchronous adversaries, meaning that they could intentionally delay network responses so as to just slow things down. And also some considered adaptive adversaries that choose corrupt parties every round for any MPC model. Yeah, these are some of the old researchers. And now we identified some more recent research topics. We mainly identified 4 of these, and we'll go into detail for each.
Cool. So I guess the first, So I guess the first research direction that's been getting a lot of traction lately is in terms of predictability and scalability. So research from the 1980s to 2000s mostly focused on feasibility, like whether it's even possible to do such a thing. And in the last decade, there's been increasing focus on practical implementations of such protocols. And we've seen a bunch of really promising results. So in 2009, a group showed that AES can be computed in 20 minutes. And just a few years later, in 2013, there was another paper which improved this to half a second per block using a parallel implementation. And in 2015, you can see that people are getting more ambitious here, and they're applying MPC for data mining on distributed databases owned by different parties. So the idea behind this is like maybe several organizations want to gain some insights from their databases without having to share this database with each other. And let's take a look at examples of MPC already being used in real life. So in 2008, we have sugar beet farmers and Danisco, which is the largest sugar beet processor in Denmark. So they wanted to hold an auction to sell sugar beets. However, they didn't want to reveal the price so the farmers didn't want to reveal the price that they wanted to sell the sugar beets at. Neither did Danisco want to reveal the price that they were willing to buy them at. And they didn't really want to go through a middleman. So what they did is they teamed up with a bunch of researchers, and the researchers developed an MPC protocol to find a market clearing price in order to process these trades. And this was a huge success. So 25,000 tons of sugar beets actually got traded that day. And this whole thing only took like 30 minutes.
Yeah. And well, the second part or area of research that we identified for MPC is blockchains. For example, in 2015, a team at MIT introduced a decentralized blockchain model to jointly store and run computations on private data based on secure multi-party computations. This is basically an innovation on top of the general public blockchains, trading absolute transparency for privacy. Also, another team in 2017 developed the first provably secure proof-of-stake blockchain protocol, making use of MPC as well. Yeah. Apart from blockchains, communication complexity is also a big part of MPC research. Traditionally, we mostly assumed that the number of bits transferred during the protocol is linear with respect to input. However, some researchers recently are looking at sublinear communication complexities and the feasibility of that, although such constructions are less secure and require more assumptions. And some other researchers are also vigorously interested in the number of rounds for MPC protocols. For example, here at CMU, we have Vipul Goyal, who's professor here, who achieved 4-round MPC protocol with only minimal assumptions. This is provably the lowest number of rounds possible, concluding a long line of research for that. And yeah, also very recently, just this year, Vipul constructed post-quantum constant round MPC protocols, and I believe he's also the first one to do so. Yeah, and the last part of our research lines is the extension of MPCs from circuit models to RAM models. For functions on these RAM models, a new professor at CMU, Elaine Shi, proposed a new oblivious RAM scheme to achieve the theoretical lower bound by Godrej-Ostrovsky in the late 1980s. And this implementation concludes this open problem that stood for 27 years. And yeah, here are some of our references if anyone is interested. And thank you.